Bizarre stories from the subscribers. Ha 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 ha. Hello, Leo Augusto. My name is Gene and I'm a 12-year-old boy. My story happened a few months ago and I believe it will mark my life forever. My brother and I were going to sleep because the next day we had class at 7 in the morning. When I was falling asleep, I felt a touch from behind as if someone was hugging me. At first I thought it was my mom or my dad coming to say goodnight, but when I turned around there was no one there. Then that feeling of someone hugging me happened again, but this time it was stronger. I turned around really quickly and again there was no one there. Could it be my brother playing a prank on me? He was sleeping on the bunk bed above. That must be it, right? Just trying to scare me, but I ended up letting it go. The next day I went to ask my mom if she knew anything about it. And I got the news that my great uncle had passed away that night. He was very fond of me and my brother. I told my brother about it after school and he said he felt the same thing last night. Someone hugged him, a sensation of being hugged, and he got scared, thinking it was something supernatural. Could it have been the soul of our great uncle saying goodbye to us or something like that? Because, well, the coincidence was just too much, wasn't it? Thank you for reading my story, Leo Augusto. My brother, who's 3 years younger than me, really likes you. A hug? My name is Joana, and since I was little, I've seen things that don't exist. It's not that I want to, but they appear like shadows dancing on the walls. Sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what comes from my mind. But fortunately, there's Bingo, my dog. He's my guide, my protective teacher. When Bingo wags his tail, I know something is real, something is there. When he stands still, I understand that something must be wrong. It was just an ordinary afternoon. I was playing in my room, drawing on a blank sheet of paper when I heard my mom's voice calling from the kitchen. "Joanna, come here and help me." I smiled, happy to hear her voice. Bingo was lying at my feet, but as soon as I got up, he stayed quiet, not moving. I went to the kitchen, but as I entered, something made me stop. My mom was there with her back to me, cutting fruit. I called her, but Bingo didn't move. He stood still at my bedroom door, looking at me with a worried expression. "Mom?" She didn't turn around, but I could see her hair swaying. Something didn't feel right. Bingo's voice echoed in my head. "I don't trust it, Joanna. It's a trap." I returned to my room feeling confused and nervous. If Bingo didn't react, what does that mean? Soon after, I noticed the situation repeating. Whenever I heard my mom calling, I would go to the kitchen and there she was, always with her back turned, doing something ordinary like cooking or setting the table. But Bingo never moved. His look told me that something was wrong. Soon after, while I was in the living room, I heard the front door open. Bingo. He jumped up, wagging his tail, and ran to the entrance, right? I went after him and found my mom, but she wasn't the same as before. How come she was in the kitchen? Just now she crouched down and smiled, petting Bingo. "Hi, my love, how are you?" "Are you hungry? I'll give you a bone to chew on." I was paralyzed, not knowing what to think. "Mom, weren't you in the kitchen?" Just now she looked at me confused. "Joanna, I just got here." "What do you mean by that?" Bingo was jumping around her, happy as always, but the other mom was still there in the kitchen. What was going on? Every time I saw one of them, the other seemed to disappear into another room. One was in the kitchen and the other in the living room. One was organizing the closet while the other was sitting on the couch. I tried to explain it to my dad, but he just smiled and said it was just my imagination. But I knew it was more than that. One night I decided to do an experiment. I waited until the kitchen mom appeared and then I went there, right? Bingo the dog was with me, always alert. While I was looking at the mirror, I saw the mom with long hair and empty eyes watching me. It was a shadow, something that shouldn't be there. I ran to the living room. My mom was there watching television and Bingo. Immediately he went to her, wagging his tail and jumping. Happy! The woman in the kitchen started to laugh, a low, dark laugh that gave me chills all over. Bingo growled and I realized that the shadow was trying to manipulate me, pretending to be my mother. That night, I decided to face the situation. I waited until the house was quiet, and when the woman from the kitchen appeared again, I approached her. Who are you? Bingo stayed by my side, ready to protect me. I am your mother, Joanna. I will always be here. No, you are not the real mother. You are here, and you are not her. When I blinked, she disappeared. I felt that the battle wasn't over, but now I knew the truth. There were two mothers, and one of them was a ghost trapped in our house trying to trick me. Since that day, whenever I hear my mother call me, I look at Bingo. If he wags his tail and runs to her, I know everything is fine, but if he stands still in silence, I stay away. Because that mother isn't the real one. Hey, Leo Augusto, I'm Joan Pedro. I'm 12 now, but I was about 10 when this happened. So my dad and my mom work at the same hospital. My mom is a cook and my dad is a stretcher bearer. That day, my mom was working and it was just me and my dad at home. It was around 1:45 in the afternoon and he was taking that little nap after lunch, you know, the famous siesta as he calls it. I was playing a game on my phone when suddenly I heard someone calling me really loudly. I got a little scared, but I went to check, you know, who's making that noise. There was nothing. The strange thing is that even my dad, who was sleeping there on the couch, didn't hear anything, as if the call was just for me. I kept playing my game, trying to ignore it. Soon after, I heard it again. I went to look out the window, and this time I saw right in front of my house there was something floating there. Facing my direction, he was beckoning me with his finger as if he wanted me to come closer. At that moment, fear took over me, man. I closed the windows and curtains, ran to my room, slammed the door, hid under the sheets, and began to cry. Very old, my dad, who was deep asleep, woke up startled, trying to calm me down. But I couldn't really explain to him what I had seen. It's been about 2 years since that happened, and even today, I don't know what that was, but thinking about it, my dad always transported a lot of patients at the hospital, including bodies of people who had already passed on to the other world, right? Who knows, maybe the soul of one of those deceased people could have clung to him. And somehow it came all the way to our house, but it couldn't get inside. It just stayed outside, just calling out. Maybe that presence was there behind my father, not me trying to communicate or seeking help to move on in peace. To this day, I still have that doubt, but I was never able to find an answer. Hello, Leo Augusto, I'm Murillo, and I'm going to tell you a wild story. Man, my grandma was always that eccentric lady, you know? She had that lavender scent. Zima kept old cookies in the cupboard, and most importantly, man, she had a green parrot with a sharp beak and a gaze that seemed to pierce right into my soul. His name was Jack, but I always called him Rascal. I was a normal kid, right? I liked doing kid stuff, watching cartoons, and of course eating, stuffing my belly. The problem was that every time I went to my grandma's house, I had the feeling that my food disappeared in a strange way. I would put my snack in the fridge, right? And when I came back to get it, everything was gone, it all disappeared. Since my mom scolded me and said I was careless, that I just didn't remember eating it. But I knew it wasn't me, it was him, Jack. The first time I got suspicious, I had left a leftover chicken drumstick in the fridge. My grandma had made it, right? I left it there, no problem, waiting for when I'd come back from playing outside all hungry so I could eat it. I spent the whole day thinking about it, you know? Dreaming about that bite when I opened the fridge at night. Man, where's the drumstick? Nothing left. It all disappeared. I ran to the living room, accusing everyone. The parrot was Jack. He took my chicken. That parrot is such a troublemaker. He's eaten my snack before and now my chicken. Are you kidding me? Of course nobody took what I said seriously, right, Murillo? Parrots don't eat chicken, my son. They only eat seeds. Stop imagining things. Boy, I've already told you I don't like it when you lie, okay? But I knew it was him. One day I was sitting quietly in the living room and I noticed that Jack was moving in a strange way. In the cage, he looked me straight in the eyes and smiled. I know parrots can't smile, but I swear he was laughing at me, man. And in the next second, he opened the little cage door, flapped his wings, and flew straight to the kitchen. I chased him, but it was too late. When I got there, he was perched on top of the fridge, pecking at a slice of my ham sandwich. I ran back to the living room yelling that Jack had stolen my snack. Oh, Murillo, stop it. Jack hardly ever leaves his cage. He's a very old parrot. My son wouldn't do that, but I knew the truth. Jack wasn't an ordinary parrot. He was cunning, manipulative, and pretended to be nice in front of adults. But when we were alone, he would show his true colors. I suspected that something was possessing that animal because it just didn't seem possible. Man, it was Sunday and my mom had made that special lunch. She left the chicken in the fridge for dinner, but when we went to get it, there was nothing there. And there I was once again saying, I told you so, it was Jack. That parrot is a thief. He steals food from the fridge. My mom and dad, already out of patience, scolded me really hard, said I was making up excuses, that I was crazy, but I knew. That jerk was sabotaging me. My mom went to the room where I slept and searched through my backpack. There were several pieces of chicken bone, the chicken that had disappeared, that damn parrot. He put the evidence of the crime inside my backpack. Dude, how did he do that? I couldn't keep up with that crook's moves and I was grounded for a long time. These days, I don't go to my grandma's house anymore, and whenever someone asks me why, I just say one thing. Be careful with parrots, they might be smarter than you think. Hi, Leo Augusto. I'm Enzo. I'm 12 years old. It all started when I was at my great-grandmother's farm. That place was awesome. There were lots of fruits I could pick from the countless kinds of fruit trees that grew there. There was a lot of sugarcane there, which was my favorite. My great-grandmother always told me to pick the fruits very carefully, because in nature there were mysterious things that not even the wisest people could explain. So there was this one time, when I was there in the sugarcane field, right? I always carried a knife with me to open the fruits. And in this case, I was cutting the sugarcane because it's really tough. So I just sat down right there and started chewing and sucking the juice. I stayed there for hours and had already eaten about 5 sugarcanes until I heard a noise. I thought it must be a little bird landing there, but it was nothing. I sensed something bad and left, and the next day I went there again, and a lot of sugarcane was missing. It looked like someone had harvested it. I asked my great-grandmother if she knew anything, and she said it was Tonho who took some from time to time, and that I shouldn't talk to him or take too much from there because he watched over the area. I thought it was kind of strange, but okay, right? On the 3rd day I did the same thing again. I stayed there sucking on the sugarcane until I heard the sound of dry grass being stepped on again. But this time you could actually tell they were footsteps, really. Could it be that Tonho guy watching me? Minna said he's the caretaker here, her gardener. I didn't really understand that. I got anxious until the bushes parted in front of me and there was nothing there. It felt like something large and invisible had stopped in front of me. I heard the following. Get out of here. You're stealing all the sugarcane. Leave before I finish you. Boy, mano, what's going on? What kind of creature is talking to me? I could only stand still without moving so I wouldn't be attacked by that thing. I stayed there for about half an hour with that creature talking, and suddenly I didn't hear anything anymore. It seemed like the weather was clear without clouds and the wind kept blowing as if nothing had happened. Am I going crazy? I decided to ignore it and went back to cutting the sugarcane, and that's when I felt an unbelievable pain, bro. When I blinked and opened my eyes where the sugarcane was, it was my arm, and my vital fluid was running all down my arm. I was in some kind of illusion. It was already nighttime, and there I was in the middle of the sugarcane field, but there was no more sugarcane there. Girl, I went back home holding my cut arm. My mom scolded me and asked what I was doing out so late. She said she went outside and didn't find me in the backyard. Right after that, my great-grandmother said that Tonho didn't like other kids. I asked her who Tonho was, since I hadn't seen anyone, and she said he was her son. Was he the one who took care of that place and protected it from intruders? I didn't think he would see him as a threat. And so I'm going to scold him for doing that, really? My mom said my great-grandmother was kind of crazy. that her son named Antonio had died more than 70 years ago, and that what she was saying didn't make sense. Until at night, almost bedtime, my great-grandmother had made the butter cookies. She gave them to me as a way to help me calm down, right? She even brought them to the room where I was. It would be good for me to recover by eating those crunchy fresh cookies that, by the way, were delicious. But the moment I was eating the second one, I could see the light flashing brightly. Could it be malfunctioning? I started to get scared. Could it be that thing from the sugarcane field? The supposed son of great-grandma? I left the cookies and went to the window, right? I took a look outside. There was a trail in the grass that came straight to the house. The lights went out for good, man. I hid under the bed. I crawled until someone knocked on the door, but I didn't open it. I stayed there really quiet until something punched really hard and the door fell down. I really didn't see anything. I just heard footsteps on the wooden floor. He was there. He went to where the cookie crumbs were falling, and I heard it. I love my mom's cookies. The bed gave in, as if someone had lain down, and I was squeezed to the point that I couldn't breathe. That thing must have weighed about 800 kilos. After that, I don't remember anything else. That's all I recall. In the morning, the sun was burning my eyes, and I was coming out from under the bed. It seemed like Tonho wasn't there anymore, right? I told my great-grandmother that the door had fallen, and she said it was okay. That door never stayed in place. Antonio has a habit of punching that door open. My mom, who slept in the room next door, said she heard a noise at night, but she was too lazy to check what it was. She thought it was me making a mess. I haven't gone back there since then, and if it depends on me, never again. I'm pretty sure that the room I was sleeping in used to be Tonho's, right? While he was alive and great-grandma made the cookies that Tonho loved so much, it was definitely something that attracted him to show up there. It really is a miracle that I'm alive today. Thank you for reading my story, Leo. I'm from Parrot. My name is Samantha, and what I'm going to tell you is something I could never forget. Since I was little, I had a doll named Lili. I don't know who gave her to me. I just know she was always with me. She was very old, one of those made of hard rubber, and her hair had already come completely off her head. Even so, I couldn't bring myself to get rid of her. There was something about Lili that was strange. Whenever I played with and brushed the hair of other dolls, I felt as if Lili was staring at me. Her fixed glass eyes seemed to follow my movements, even though I knew it was impossible. It's just in my head, I kept telling myself, until one night everything changed. I dreamed that I woke up in the middle of the night and saw my hair in the mirror missing pieces as if it had been cut unevenly. I remember the fear I felt, that suffocating feeling. When I really woke up, I went straight to the mirror, still trying to convince myself it was just a dream. But no, my hair really was shorter. It looked like it had been trimmed with scissors. At breakfast, my mom noticed and said, "Samantha, why did you cut your hair?" I explained everything, the dream, the situation, but she just looked at me with that skeptical mom expression, like she thought I was making up stories. The next night, I went to bed with the feeling that something was wrong, but I tried to convince myself it was just in my head. That's when I had an even more vivid nightmare. This time, I was completely bald, my head shining under the light, just like Lily's. I woke up with a gasp. The clock showed 5 a.m. Something was very wrong. I never woke up at this hour. When I looked in the mirror, my heart almost stopped. I was bald. It wasn't a dream, it was real. My head was completely smooth, not a single strand of hair. I screamed so loudly that my mom came into my room in seconds, even before she could ask what had happened. I pointed to the shelf where Lili was. Something about her had changed. The doll, which used to be bald, now had hair, and it wasn't just any hair, it was mine. My mother turned pale, took Lili, looked at me, and just said, "You will never see that doll again," and that's exactly what happened. She made Lili disappear that day and never told me what she did with her. But sometimes when I'm alone in my room, I feel like I'm still being watched, like Lili is nearby waiting. My name is Julio, and I will never forget what happened at the new school in the neighborhood when it opened. Everyone was excited. It was modern, clean, with everything brand new, but a week later, strange things started happening. There, the first signs were the drawings. They were bizarre figures, made with something that looked like black ink, like scattered stains, but with almost distorted human shapes. At least 4 rooms had these marks. One on the staircase, another in the bathroom, another in the kitchen, and the last one in the yard. At first, I thought it was just some student making strange graffiti, but then the accident started. On the staircase, where I saw the first drawing, a child fell and hit their head. It was horrible. She had to be taken to the hospital urgently the following week. In the bathroom, another accident happened. Someone got badly cut on the toilet. The guy was doing his business and suddenly the toilet broke. Then in the kitchen, a girl was having lunch and choked on a chicken bone. The teachers rushed over. She almost didn't make it. The 4th accident happened in the courtyard. A boy climbed onto a protective fence and slipped, tearing his leg on the rusty iron. That's when I started to notice the pattern. Every place that had that weird drawing ended up being the scene of a serious accident. And worst of all, the next drawing was on the ceiling of my living room. It was a strange shape and I couldn't figure out what it was. I talked to my classmates about it. I tried to warn them that something could happen, but no one took me seriously. And even worse, they started saying that I was the one responsible for those bizarre drawings. They said it was my fault, that I just wanted attention. Time went by and I became more paranoid. Every day I looked at that drawing on the ceiling expecting something horrible to happen. Until a month later I walked into the room and realized the ceiling fan was no longer there. My heart raced. I asked the inspector what had happened and he replied, "It fell yesterday on the head of a student from the afternoon shift and unfortunately he didn't make it." It's really strange that these things are happening here at school. I felt a chill run up my spine. It wasn't a coincidence. Something was wrong at that school and the drawings were warnings that nobody believed. I still keep wondering who could have done that. Maybe it was a restless soul that left its mark, or a warning that something was about to happen. Or maybe that school was built on some sacred or desecrated ground. I don't know. I just know it had something to do with those strange drawings. Nowadays, I'm not at that school anymore, thank God. But when you walk past that place, you can see that it's not pure. Everything is wrecked, destroyed. Which one is it? My name is Jorge, and what happened in the house where we lived still haunts me. It all started with some sounds on the roof, always at night, right above my room. At first, there were scratches and small footsteps. I thought it was our cat or even some rats walking around up there, but when my dad went up to check, he didn't find anything. The noises kept getting clearer and more disturbing. They were heavy footsteps, as if something big was walking right above me. One night I decided to record the sounds on my phone. When I listened to the recording the next day, I was terrified. Besides the footsteps, there was a heavy and slow breathing. Two creatures, Akun Zanotto, subtitle Adriana Zanotto. I showed it to my father, who grew serious and promised to recheck the roof. But before that, something very strange happened. Our cat Tito disappeared. He was the kind that always came back home, but that week, he just vanished. We searched everywhere, but with no luck, right? In the middle of the night, before my dad climbed onto the roof for the second time, I was awake listening to the sounds as usual when something made me freeze. I looked out the window and saw a shadow crossing the sky. It was as if it had left the roof of my house and gone far away. I was paralyzed. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Maybe it was a vulture or something like that. I remember falling asleep and waking up to a loud bang. The noise was back. Heavy footsteps directly light up above me. The wooden ceiling seemed to give way under the weight of the thing. It felt like something from another world. The next morning, my father went up to the roof again, this time carrying a flashlight. When he came down, he was as pale as a ghost. He said he had found strange droppings up there, a gigantic nest made of branches, scraps of fabric, the bones. There was something even more bizarre, a small collection that seemed to belong to a cat. My father didn't say anything, but his look said it all. Tito hadn't just disappeared, he was probably eaten. He also found a side opening in the roof, as if something big had dug there to get in. This isn't an ordinary bird. My son Tito, it seems like a hellish creature just appeared here. That night, my father decided we were going to move. He didn't want to explain much, but he made it clear that it wasn't safe for us to stay there. Since then, I never witnessed that bizarre thing again. Sometimes I feel like something is watching me, and on silent nights, I swear I hear footsteps above my head, but I guess it's just my imagination, right? My name is Mariano, and what happened that day at school still gives me chills. It was a Tuesday like any other. I went to the cafeteria at lunchtime and got my plate of food, right? Rice, beans, vegetables, and the long-awaited steak. Everything was normal until I cut into what should have been the meat. When the knife slid through, I felt something was wrong. The steak was too soft and the smell started to get weird. I looked at the plate, but up close, and I almost threw up. It wasn't a steak, it was a frog, a dead damp frog. With its legs folded and its dull eyes looking horrendous, I dropped the tray on the floor and let out a scream that echoed through the cafeteria. The noise made everyone look at me, and soon other students started screaming too when they saw that thing. The supervisors came running, tried to calm me down, saying it must have been an accident in the kitchen, but that didn't make any sense. How could a whole dead frog have ended up on my plate? After that, the cafeteria was closed for a day so they could figure out what happened, right? Their explanation wasn't enough. A kitchen worker was fired. They said he was psychologically unstable, but even so, something didn't add up. The next day, I decided to take a walk around the back of the school to clear my head. It was a kind of forgotten area with trees, weeds, and a swamp. There I saw something that made me tremble with fear. More frogs, dozens of them scattered throughout the swamps. They were standing still, all of them looking at me as if they were watching every step I took. I kept walking further, and next to the kitchen there was a huge pile of trash. There were torn bags with food scraps, and there were a lot of rats too. They ran between the bags, eating whatever they could. The scene was disgusting but also creepy. Something was wrong there. I returned to the room without saying anything, but couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. The frogs, the rats, the trash, and that thing on my plate. That night I dreamed about a frog. I was eating until out of nowhere I started throwing up a lot. I threw up several frogs, and then I couldn't breathe and I woke up. Since then I stopped eating at school. If there was a frog in the food, who knows what else was in there, right? Hi Leo, I'm Joana, Arthur's mom. I was never one to believe in strange things. I always thought life was just a series of coincidences. But today, sitting here looking at that dusty box in the corner of the room, I can't help but think maybe I was wrong. My son's first birthday party was beautiful, one of those chaotic and happy days at the same time. Friends, family, kids running around the house, balloons popping all the time. I could barely remember who came, let alone what each person brought as a gift. Torn paper and ribbons were scattered across the floor. There it was, a cardboard box with no name and no flashy wrapping, just placed among the other gifts. I grabbed it in the middle of the mess and tossed it in the trunk of the car without a second thought. Later I'll open everything calmly, or so I thought, right? The following days were really busy and I forgot all about it. It was an ordinary afternoon, and the baby had fallen asleep in the car seat while I was bringing the groceries inside. My garage has a slight slope, but the handbrake was on. I was sure of it. Suddenly I heard a strange noise, the sharp click of the brake releasing, and when I turned around, my heart stopped. The car was rolling down the slope slowly at first, then faster and faster. I screamed, dropped the bags, and ran, but there was nothing I could do. I saw the car go down the street, bump gently into the curb, and stop. My baby was crying, but thank God he was okay, unharmed. The same couldn't be said for me. My legs were shaking and my heart felt like it was going to explode. After everything calmed down, I went to look at the car. The trunk was slightly open and there was the box. I don't know why, but at that moment something made me feel a cold shiver. I decided not to open it. I just took it inside and put it in my son's room in a corner near the crib. I'll check what's inside later, I kept telling myself that. The next day I woke up to a strange smell. It was something burning. I jumped out of bed and ran to my son's room. What I saw made my blood run cold. The crib was on fire. The outlets on the wall had melted. The wires were glowing and sparking. Everything was already turning into a pile of embers and smoke. The crib, the one my husband had assembled with so much care, crackled and creaked as it burned. But the baby wasn't there. Thanks to my unpredictable routine, he had slept with me in the bedroom that night. If it weren't for that, I can't even finish the thought. The firefighters said it was a short circuit, a problem with the outlets. But I knew something was wrong. I didn't say anything to anyone, but I went back to the room as soon as everything calmed down. The box was intact, the cardboard. I picked it up with trembling hands. I felt its weight. Something big was inside, maybe a doll or a toy, but I didn't have the courage to open it. I went down the stairs with the box in my arms, left the house, and went straight to the farthest dump I could find. I threw it there with all my strength, as if I could get rid of everything it had brought with it until today. When I think about that box, I feel something strange. I've asked everyone in the family, all my friends, and no one remembers giving me that box. This is a mystery that haunts me to this day. Hello, I'm Demas. I live in Acre, and I'm going to tell you about it today. It's proof that nowhere are you safe from supernatural threats. I was in my room ready to sleep, and I noticed there was a spider web right where the wall meets. I don't know when it started, but it was only then that I noticed there was more than one. There were about 4 webs. I think my mom isn't cleaning my room properly. The next day, while having my morning cereal, I complained to her, saying that I had to sleep with spider webs in my room. If I got bitten, I could even get sick and die. Clearly, she wasn't doing her job properly for things to end up like that. My mom didn't take my criticism very well and told me to clean the room myself since I was asking for too much. I let it go, and that was that. That's exactly why. As time went by, I noticed there were things stuck in those webs. One of them even had a sock. Oh my gosh, how did that end up there, girl? Did I throw it up there at some point and I just don't remember? When I got back from school, I had a surprise, and it wasn't a good one. Demas, I went into your room to leave some clothes I had washed, but it was locked. I don't want you locking your room, okay, boy? All of this happened because I told you to clean your room. There was just one problem, Leo. I didn't lock anything. What is my mom talking about? When I grabbed my doorknob and tried to force it open, it was stuck. What the hell is this? I stepped back and kicked the door. The door opened slightly. Dude, there was a web there holding the door. It was holding the door in such a way that it made it hard to open. Man, I had to get a knife from the kitchen to cut that and be able to get in. Something strange is going on here. I can feel it. In the middle of the night, I woke up startled. I felt something crawling on my face, and when I turned on the lamp, it was spiders. Dude, my room was being taken over by those insolent arachnids. I managed to kill about three with a slap, but the others got away. There were small cracks where they could hide. The next day, I had to clean my room. I removed the webs and sprayed insecticide all over the place. This time, yes, I locked everything, door and window, to get rid of any threat. I went to school and told the story to my bro. João Pedro, man, are you in trouble? That's not normal behavior, spider behavior. They only go after mosquitoes and small insects, but it seems like your case is even weirder. They want to eat you. You're living in their nest. Crazy, not them living in your room. Unless it's the vengeful spirit controlling them. To finish you off, sooner or later you will be killed. It was nice knowing you, Parsa. During the night I had nightmares, Leo. I was sweating cold and I couldn't wait for the day to break. I felt stomach pains, and when I looked at my belly button, a gigantic spider came out of my torso. Until I woke up with one side of my ear feeling strange. I couldn't hear properly. I stayed like that for 3 days, and the more time passed, the less I could hear. My mom took me to the doctor to see what it was about, right? And after examining me, he found spider eggs inside me. If I had waited a little longer, maybe I would have lost my hearing. Those sneaky arachnids laid eggs in my ear, girl. Since then, I've been destroying those cursed webs, and the next day they show up again. I won't let that creature or those creatures take over me. Hi, Leo Augusto. I'm Miguel, and I've always tried to be the best boy I can. I listened to my parents, did my homework, and even helped my little sister put her toys away in the basket. Every year, I wrote a carefully crafted letter to Santa Claus, asking for a special present. This year, I asked for an ActionBot Ultra 5000, an amazing robot that could also transform into a spaceship. But this year's Christmas was different. On the morning of December 25th, I jumped out of bed full of expectations, ran to the living room with a smile on my face, and there was my present, a box wrapped in shiny red paper. I tore the paper enthusiastically, but my smile disappeared instantly. Inside the box, there was a weird doll. It looked old with a strange smile and worn linen clothes. It wasn't the ActionBot Ultra 5000 I wanted. In fact, it was something I would never ask for. My mom, when she saw my face, said maybe Santa Claus made a mistake. It could just be an error. Miguel, maybe he'll come back to fix it. But something about that doll bothered me deeply. It had a strange smell, like mold mixed with something metallic. While I was trying to understand what had happened, I heard noise from the house next door. My neighbor, Caio, was celebrating. He was the opposite of me, messy, rude, and cruel. Can you believe I've seen him throwing rocks at a stray dog? There wasn't a single day when he didn't pick on me or the other kids on the street. When I peeked through the window, I saw that he was playing with the ActionBot Ultra 5000. I felt a tightness in my chest. Santa Claus had switched our presents. I was sure of it. That night I couldn't sleep. The doll was on my bedroom shelf, staring at me with those glass eyes. The house was silent, but I had the feeling that I wasn't alone. Around midnight I heard a noise. It was scratching. I looked at the doll and I swear it was in a different position than the one I had left it in. I didn't want to believe it. I grabbed a blanket and covered myself, trying to forget about it, but the sounds kept going. I got up and turned on the light. The doll was on the floor near my bed. What is this doll doing here? I put it in my closet and then I was able to sleep. The next morning I tried to convince my parents to throw the doll away, but they said I was overreacting. It's just a toy. Miguel won't do anything to you. That night I heard screams coming from Caio's house. The noise was so loud that my parents woke up and went outside to see what was happening. I looked out the window and saw something that chilled me to the bone. Man. The doll was in Caio's garden holding something that looked like a piece of Caio's ActionBot. It didn't show up the next day nor the day after. His parents said he went to visit a relative, but there was something in their tone of voice that wasn't right. Mano, I think they were lying. The doll disappeared too. I still think about that night. Did Santa Claus really make that mistake, or did he know exactly what he was doing? Since then, I've never looked at the chimney with the same innocence. I keep wondering if it was really Santa Claus who put this strange toy here. My name is Otavio, and it was Christmas night, December 25th, and I woke up thirsty around 3 a.m. Usually, I would get water from the bathroom, but that night something made me go down to the kitchen. Our house was the only one on the street with a chimney, and I was sure that Santa Claus would use it to come in. As I was going down the stairs, I noticed something strange. Leo, the Christmas tree was lying on the floor. What happened here? Did Max knock it over?
That's what I thought, right?
Max is our dog, a very energetic and curious mutt, but he's always been well behaved. Before I could think any further, I noticed dirty paw prints all over the floor. Santa Claus came in here, I'm sure of it. That's when I heard the sound of pots and pans in the kitchen. Maybe it was my dad or my mom, but that didn't make sense. I got close to the door and carefully I looked inside. There he was, Santa Claus. Or at least it seemed like it. He was wearing worn-out red clothes, a crooked hat, and had a big black bag beside him. He was facing the fridge, eating pieces of food with his hands as if he were starving. My heart raced. Santa Claus. Before he could hear, Max appeared out of nowhere. He entered the kitchen without making a sound, but when he saw the man, he started growling. The good old man turned around, startled, and Max didn't think twice. He lunged forward and bit his shin really hard. The man screamed and dropped the food he was holding. It was done. They saw each other.
Get out, dog.
He was yelling, trying to get rid of Max, but he wouldn't let go no matter what. He left the bag behind, tried to run, and knocked over a bunch of things along the way. His desperation only made Max even more ferocious. In an awkward movement, he tripped over the table. Manu still tried to run, went to the living room and tried to climb up the chimney, but he couldn't. He ended up rushing out the front door, limping and cursing.
That miserable dog.
Max kept barking at the door for a while. I was paralyzed, and when I looked at the floor, I saw the black bag he left behind. Could there be presents in here? I thought about it more, and when I opened it, I realized it was just recyclable trash, cans, plastic bottles, and old paper. My Santa Claus was actually just an ordinary man, probably someone who was homeless or just trying to get some food. When my parents came downstairs and saw the mess, they were shocked. I explained everything, the noise, the man, and how Max chased him away. My dad gave him a pat. That dog saved our Christmas. I still think about it. Sometimes it wasn't Santa Claus, but in a way, that night, Max was my hero. Luckily, the next morning, when I went downstairs, my present was there at the base of the tree. Everything was normal until I got the skateboard I had always wanted. I was sitting in my chair, focused on the math test. The silence in the room was so heavy that I could hear the sound of my own breathing. Suddenly, I felt a touch on my shoulder, a light touch, almost imperceptible, but enough to make me shudder. Jonas, help me out, man. The voice was low, almost a whisper. Jonas, help me, but I recognized it right away. It was Lucas, the guy who always sat behind me, but something was wrong. Lucas wasn't in our class anymore. He had disappeared a few weeks ago and nobody knew where he was, and now he showed up. During the math test, the teacher had said that he had transferred to another school. Lucas, what the hell are you doing here? My heart started racing and my hands began to tremble.
I need the answer to question 3, Jonas. Please help me.
His voice was different. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I couldn't turn around. If the teacher saw me talking, I'd be in trouble. Besides, I wasn't going to risk getting caught cheating. I wasn't doing very well that term and I had to pass.
I can't.
Lucas, I'm sorry, man.
Jonas, please, man, I need to pass. I don't want to stay.
Stay here forever? That sentence gave me chills. What did he mean by stay here forever? Before I could think it through, the bell rang announcing the end of the test. I sighed in relief and gathered my things.
Jonas, don't leave me here, man.
Lucas's voice sounded way too desperate, man, but still low, like only I could hear it. My heart raced and I finally turned around. Lucas's chair was empty. No one was sitting there, man. I looked around, but none of my classmates seemed to have noticed anything different. There, the teacher was collecting the tests and the other students were talking to each other, completely unaware. I left the classroom as quickly as I could without looking back. In the hallway, I took a deep breath. I needed some fresh air, man, trying to convince myself that it was all just my imagination, right? What if I'm going crazy? Maybe the stress from the test made me hear things. The next day, I decided to ask about Lucas. I went into the classroom and approached a group of classmates. Hey, does anyone know about Lucas? He's been missing for a while, right? They glanced at each other, puzzled, and asked, Lucas? Who's Lucas? He asked. One of them disappeared 2 weeks ago. They laughed. Didn't you see him behind me taking the test? No, Jonas, there was no one sitting behind you, man. At the last test, there were only a few people there, right? Because it was for the makeup test, man. I started not understanding what was happening to me, so Lucas had never been there asking me for answers until today. When I walk past the room, I feel that chill on the back of my neck and hear a distant whisper.
Jonas, help me out here, man. I can't stay here forever.
Is Jonas going crazy? And is there no such person as Lucas or that young boy? Actually, it was someone who studied at that school many decades ago and took so long to finish their test that they ended up dying, and now they're looking for answers from other students to finish their test and get out of the classroom. To go back to their home and their family? Hello, my name is Mateus Gonçalves. You know that story about the dad who went out to buy cigarettes and never came back? Well, that happened to me, but it wasn't my dad, it was my grandfather. I remember it like it was today. I was about 7 years old and I saw when he left to buy some things at the grocery store here in the neighborhood. It was about 2 blocks from our house, but what usually took about 20 minutes ended up taking much longer. At first I thought he had run into a friend or someone he knew out on the street, you know? And that they stayed there talking, catching up, or maybe went to take care of something at the bank. You know how it is, right? Those huge lines take up a lot of a person's time. But after an entire day and he still didn't come back, my mom and dad went looking for him and couldn't find him. They drove around the city and there was no sign of the old man. He didn't use a phone, so they told the police about his disappearance. The years went by and the pain kept growing. 10 years went by, man. It was an ordinary sunny morning, just like any other. My grandfather's absence had already become part of the family's routine, a wound that time couldn't completely heal. But that day, something happened that shook everything we knew. The sound of shuffling footsteps echoed along the sidewalk in front of our house. When I opened the door, I almost dropped my bread. There he was, my grandfather, wearing the same clothes, a gray shirt with coffee stains. From the same day he disappeared, there wasn't a single extra wrinkle on his face. For him, it was as if time had stopped, but for us, a decade had already passed. He stopped on the stairs, frowning, and when he looked at me, his eyes showed suspicion. "Excuse me, young man, does this house still belong to Jorge?" he asked, referring to my father. My breath caught. "Grandpa, it's me, Matthias. What kind of joke is this?" "Matthias is just a boy. He must be, what, about 7 years old?" The pain of hearing that was overwhelming. The memories of a child waiting for a grandfather who never came back mixed with the shock of seeing him there, unchanged, as if time really hadn't passed. "Grandpa, it's really me. I grew up. You have been missing for 10 years. He took a step back, looking at me as if I were a stranger. 10 years can't be. "I just went to the grocery store. I was gone for what, 10 minutes? You must have me confused with someone else and I went to the wrong house, right? That must be it." I ran to my parents and told them who was coming back home again after 10 years. My parents couldn't believe what they were seeing. They stood still and turned pale. When my grandfather saw the two of them, his expression changed to a mix of relief and confusion. "Jorge, Helena, what happened to you? You look older." He widened his eyes, starting to realize that something was wrong. We took my grandfather to the kitchen to have a sip of really cold water, right? Trying to explain what had happened, but he insisted that we had gone crazy. He described in detail how he left the house that morning, went to the grocery store, bought a few things, and came straight back home. For him, the day remained the same. When we mentioned the name of Mr. Nestor, the owner of the grocery store he went to, he was surprised to learn that the man had died. It had been 7 years. That's impossible. I just talked to him. He even gave me a discount on the sardines. Meanwhile, we observe every detail. He didn't seem to have aged a single day. His clothes were just like before, with no sign of wear, as if he had really just left the house. But the question that remained was what happened during those 10 years? Where was he? The doctors couldn't explain what happened to him. There were no signs of significant aging or illness. It was as if he had been frozen in time. Even so, something seemed strange. During conversations, he mentioned places and people that no one knew, as if part of his memory belonged to another place, another reality. The climax happened the following night. I was in my room looking through old photo albums when I heard a sound coming from the hallway. I opened my door and went out. There was my grandfather standing in front of a mirror, staring at his reflection. I don't understand. Matthias, it feels like I don't belong in this place. Grandma, what's happening? What do you remember, sir? I only remember arriving at the grocery store, buying some things, and then there was a flash in front of my eyes. I blinked. I rubbed my eyes and returned here. I don't know what could have happened, but if everything you told me is true, then maybe this isn't really me. It's really not? I don't know what could have happened, but after 3 weeks my grandfather passed away. It was a shock for the whole family. It was as if he had left us all over again. After 10 years we were able to see him again. We were so happy, and now this is another blow to our family. I remember that at the wake he looked much older than he actually was. I believe he went through some kind of portal or something like that and ended up stranded in this temporal void. And when he came back here, all those years that hadn't shown on his body suddenly caught up with him and made him age rapidly. Hi Leo, I'm Emanuele, and today I'll share a creepy story that happened to me in January 2024. That month, my dad and I traveled to Argentina because his sister and nieces lived there. I admit I was excited, but at the same time a little sad because my mom didn't go with us, you know? Because she was afraid of flying. She was scared that thing would fall and kill everyone. So she just let us go because if it crashes, she won't die, right? Yeah, that's it. I remember clearly that we traveled on the 8th and came back on the 31st. But during that time, something happened that still makes me wonder if it was all just my imagination. We were staying at my aunt's house, right? And it was really fun to spend time there, except at bedtime, man. Her house had 3 bedrooms, one with a double bed, another with a single bed, and the last one with 2 single beds. My aunt and I slept in the room with those 2 single beds, right? While my dad stayed in the room with a single bed. It was the middle of the night and I was still awake while my aunt and my dad were already snoring. I was calmly using my phone lying in bed. Until at a certain moment I decided to turn off the device to try to sleep, right? Since it was already past 2 in the morning. Leo. As soon as I closed my eyes, I felt my bed shake a lot, as if there was an earthquake, but only in the bed. I opened my eyes. Scared, I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, but there was nothing. Even so, I decided to try to sleep again, even though I was sweating cold, right? Very safe. And it was at that moment, as soon as I closed my eyes again, that I felt someone sit on my bed. I jumped up terrified, turned on the flashlight, but there was no one there, absolutely empty. After that, I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in there for about 10 minutes trying to calm down. I was only able to sleep around 7 in the morning when I was already exhausted. On the day we were going back to Brazil, while we were at the airport, I remembered that my aunt was a widow. Maybe, who knows, it could have been her husband's spirit. What if the spirit was there, sat down and lay next to her to be close to her, right? And I was in their way. All I know is that when I got home, I thanked God so much for being back, and I hope I never have to go back to Argentina. That's it. Hello, Leo Augusto. I'm Kaio and have a creepy story for you. Back at school, I'll never forget that day. It was supposed to be just another normal recess at school. People sitting on the bench by the court, the boys playing soccer, the girls gossiping, and that same group always around the arm wrestling table. But it was on that day that I saw something that never left my mind. His name was Samuel. He was the strangest boy in our class. Not because he was weird or anything like that, but because of his arm. The right one, to be more specific. It was disproportionate. Mano, to say the least. It wasn't just big, it was the kind of thing you look at and feel like something's wrong, as if that arm didn't belong to him. The veins were thick, they looked alive, and the skin had a strange texture. I was never able to describe it properly, but he always wore a loose shirt. So most people only noticed when he sat at the arm wrestling table and saw that huge arm. And Samuel loved that. I think it was the only time he didn't try to hide his arm. He was unbeatable and everyone loved cheering for him until Felipe arrived. Felipe was the new kid at school, kind of stuck up, you know. It seemed like he was gonna be the new little bully. He had only been here for a few weeks and already thought he was the king of the place. On the day of recess, he saw Samuel at that table and out of nowhere started laughing like, "What the heck is that on your arm, you weirdo?" Samuel didn't answer. He just gave that nervous little smile of his and put his elbow on the table. That was just his way of saying, "If you want to talk, come play." Felipe laughed again and sat down. I was there right in front, watching everything closely, watching.
The Brute is going to crush him, I'm sure. The Brute, I bet my grilled cheese that he's going to lose.
They held hands and I swear, I saw Samuel's arm move even before the referee at the table gave the signal. It wasn't him moving his arm, you know, it wasn't like his arm was anxious. At first, Felipe seemed to be doing well in the match. He strained, leaned in, bit his lips, but Samuel just looked at him with a little smile. But his arm didn't even tremble, so it happened when he pressed hard, he heard those dry cracks. "Oh, damn, my arm," Felipe shouted, and his arm, oh my God, man. His arm was bent in a way I didn't know was possible. The bone came out through the skin and the blood started to drip onto the table. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was Samuel. His arm changed, the veins were bulging, and it looked like his arm was bigger, man, more swollen. I swear on everything that's most sacred, I saw that arm pulsing like it was alive. Samuel was staring at his arm with wide eyes. He looked just as terrified as we were, man, but he wouldn't let go of Felipe's hand. It was like his arm didn't want to let go. He wants to leave, but his arm is stuck. It's crazy. That's when I realized it wasn't a normal arm. It was something else, something that didn't belong to him and had a will of its own. The teacher came running, screaming, and finally Samuel let go of Felipe. He ran out of the court, holding his arm with his other hand, and no one could stop him. Felipe was taken to the hospital, and they said he would need surgery, but no one mentioned Samuel's arm. How do you explain something like that? After that day, he didn't come back to school. Some people said his parents took him out of there. After that day, arm wrestling was banned at school to prevent things like that from happening again. Hey, Mano, breaking the other guy's arm, Mano, do you think that arm wasn't the boy's, man? Do you think he got that in a Crossroads pack because it clearly didn't belong to him? You couldn't see any stitching on the shoulder, right? But I wouldn't doubt at all that it could have been implanted there, man, like a Frankenstein. Are you crazy? I'll never forget that day when...
Damn, dude, you broke the thing right there, look.
You twisted the whole guy, that arm. That's not natural. What are you taking?